We're going to go ahead and get started. We have our presenter here with us, Leon from Geico. He's going to introduce himself. He will be presenting to us the importance of networking and mentoring. And Leon, I'll go ahead and let you get started. Thank you so much for being here today.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. My name is Leon Darrell. I am a claims manager at Geico in our Lakeland office. To give you a little bit more history about who I am and some of my experiences. So I'm from originally Buffalo, New York. So up north where it snows all the time is where I'm originally from. I also went to college in Buffalo, New York as well. I studied at Canisius College in Buffalo, and I have a bachelor's degree in finance as well as an MBA that I achieved after college as well. I started at Geico in 2010. It was the first and only career that I've ever had. I think I worked at Lids before that, selling hats. So Geico is all I know in terms of my professional career. I started as a claims service representative in our Buffalo office. And to be honest, at that time, it was more so pay for my car that I got immediately following college, got a car note fresh out of college. And, I remember being in our training classes and looking around and figuring out that, hey, I like this and I think I can do it and be pretty good at it. And so 10 years later, here I am. I've held a number of positions. I've been fortunate enough to be promoted a number of times. And I'd like to think that both networking and mentorship has played a significant role in my ability to achieve some of my personal goals at work, as well as some of my achievements outside of work. So the first thing I'd like to touch on is how networking has impacted me as an individual. And to me, there's personal networking and then there's professional networking as well. And I'll give you an example of two scenarios that I've actually encountered recently. So over the past few months, I actually had a flat tire on one of my vehicles. And I remember taking it into my dealership to get a quote, which is probably the worst idea, right? I think everybody knows the dealership's going to come in a little bit higher, but nonetheless, that's where I started. I went to the dealership to get a quote for new tires. And of course, on an SUV, you can't just get one new tire. You have to get 4 new tires because they all have to be the same level. So the quote was a little higher than I could come to terms with. So after that, you start talking to friends and you start thinking about different ways to achieve your goal at a lower price, which is to get 4 new tires. And a few months ago, I'd actually attended a networking conference and had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who was in management at a tire company and happened to have his contact information saved in my phone and I was able to reach out to him to talk through my situation and kind of pick up where we left off, not just start by saying I need something from you, but just follow up on prior conversations we have already had. And thank goodness, through the relationship I was able to establish with him earlier and picking up where we left off, I was able to get a tire for a cheaper price, which was my ultimate goal. And instead of the $2,500 my dealership quoted me, I was able to get 4 brand new Pirelli tires for $700, which I thought was a pretty good deal. And then in terms of, my professional networking, I've had a number of mentors in the workplace. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, about my perspective on different ways to leverage those relationships and pursue those relationships. But, throughout my 10 years at Geico, I'd probably say I've had at least, 5 to 7 mentors that have played a significant role in my ability to achieve some of the things that I'm proud to achieve to this date. So we'll start off with what is networking. And this is the Leon version, by the way, so don't Google it. I'm just giving you my perspective on some of these topics. But to me, networking is establishing and nurturing long-term connections with the specific intent of benefiting one another. Okay, the next question is, where can you network? And the answer is truly everywhere. But to give you some more examples of some of the common spaces that you'll find yourselves in as a young professional, engaging in networking or pursuing a mentor, I'll give you some specific examples. And some of those are meet and greets that you may attend. A lot of organizations host speed networking events as well as panel speaker events. You may find yourself at a career fair, an art exhibit, a health and wellness event in the workplace itself. And then, of course, there are social media platforms such as LinkedIn available as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about LinkedIn here in a little bit. Some best practices whenever you're networking is obviously the hardest part is starting the conversation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But once the conversation concludes, you always want to find yourself asking for contact information or a business card to be able to exchange information, to be able to facilitate conversations down the road. You also, whenever you get contact information, want to send a follow-up email or a text, thanking them for the time, talking through how great it was to meet them, so that you can be sure they have your contact information and can save you as well. And you always want to make sure you have a mechanism to remember people's names. For me, whenever I meet someone, and it's not someone that I'm going to talk to every single day, I save their first and last name, as well as where I met them and the date I met them. And I actually put that in my contacts so that it's readily available for me down the road should I need to call upon it. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn. Now, many of you are probably familiar with this social media platform, but just to give you some additional perspective for those of you who may not be as familiar, LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network with over 706 million users. Their mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. And now I'm going to talk through some of the Leon rules when it comes to LinkedIn. And these are more so suggestions that I would give to people in your position as they start to join the social media platform. The number one rule I have is remember that this isn't Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat or any of those other social media platforms that you may find yourself on. And not that we would ever put anything unprofessionally on any social media platform, but this one specifically was created to facilitate a connection within the realm of professionalism. So some of the common things that aren't necessarily unprofessional, but you still might find yourself posting on some of those other social media platforms likely may not be appropriate for LinkedIn. Everything that you do on LinkedIn should come from a place of improving yourself, development, fostering a connection with other professionals, is really the only things that you should be trying to do on LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind as you navigate your profile or other people's profile as well. Rule number 2, start your professional story early and update it often. So this is actually one of the regrets I have, and obviously LinkedIn has grown significantly since I was coming out of college and high school. But for you guys, coming out in an era where LinkedIn is kind of fully established and a very significant part of your career story per se. I mean, a lot of you are going to leverage some of the functionalities of LinkedIn and other things to achieve some of your personal career achievements. I would suggest to you that you guys start your LinkedIn story now and you update it regularly with any achievements and kind of treat it as something that you should be working to make better every single day. When you have this daily log of professional accomplishments that you've achieved, personal development that you're in pursuit of, and thought-provoking content that you're interacting with, it kind of gives others, it makes it clear your commitment to these very critical areas. And that's something that when other people look at your profile or consider a connection with you are going to take into consideration. And you want to make sure that's in the best standing proactively so that you can come off as someone that everyone should want to connect with or potentially want to offer a job opportunity to. Rule number 3, leverage your real life connections. So whenever you guys make your LinkedIn profile, you may have contacts now that currently have a LinkedIn profile already. And obviously, if there's of mutual interest to both of you in terms of how you can impact one another's development, that might be a connection you want to consider. But for many, many people, they may be in pursuit of as many connections as possible. And that's something that I would caution you on, because LinkedIn actually has the functionality to flag your account. And if too many people flag you as someone as they don't know, then it gets a little bit harder to connect with other people down the road once your profile is flagged. You actually have to know the email of the person you are seeking a connection with in order for that connection to go through once your profile is flagged. So I would encourage you to leverage your real life connections and connect with those that you may know now. Those that you may have met recently are the main two buckets that you're going to want to leverage as you look to get as many connections as possible. And doing some research on how many connections a lot of employers or the workforce looks for on a profile, 500 connections seems to be the number that everyone's kind of in pursuit of. But remember, it's not about racing to 500 connections. It's about achieving 500 meaningful connections that bring value to one another. So that's the suggestion I would give you in that area. Rule number 4 is make sure you have a professional photograph. You don't necessarily want to be doing a selfie in your LinkedIn profile picture. You're really going to want to have a professional snapshot, and be wearing attire that's professional for the workplace as well. And the 5th rule that I have, and this is my last rule that I'm going to give, is nurture your relationships. So remember, the goal is to facilitate a meaningful connection between you and others, and that requires engagement with others' achievements, participation at events they may host, and reactions to thought-provoking content that they may share as well. So again, that's part of what you want to have as your goal in terms of how you're interacting with this platform daily and ways you navigate through the content on this platform. So for many of you, LinkedIn will serve as a catalyst to help you find the career of your dreams. But as with anything, those that lay the foundation early and find a meaningful way to use this tool will reap the most benefit. So those are just some of my suggestions about LinkedIn for you guys. Now, in terms of how to network in the workplace, I would say the first thing you want to do is lay an early foundation to develop your brand. So while these things aren't directly related to a mentor relationship or networking per se, they can play a role in the relationships that you'll be able to obtain. And these things are things like be on time to work or whatever other event you're attending, actively participate in work functions such as corporate events, help teammates or superiors. You want to always ask meaningful questions and be in pursuit of additional insight. And don't be afraid to set up meetings to learn about various areas of the organization. I found that people that are in pursuit of additional knowledge on areas that not only that they work with directly, but other areas that impact the organization have a brand that kind of comes off as them being, starved for additional information, or they want to have the biggest impact to the corporation. And to do that, they need to understand not only the content that they work directly with, but also other areas of operations as well. The other thing I would say is prepare for your next job before the opportunity is available. Obviously, everyone wants to come into work each day and be as high a performer as possible, but you really want to make sure that you understand or are trying to actively understand what you want to accomplish in the workplace and take the steps to prepare for those check marks as you pursue your ultimate goal, but take the time to prepare for how you can put yourself in position to achieve whatever accomplishments you want to achieve in the workplace. And I'll give you an example of myself. So like I said, I'm a claims manager, and without diving too deep into it, I will tell you that Geico has multiple tiers of claims departments. So for point of reference, I'll say there's 4 departments within our claim unit, and every individual department has an adjuster, a supervisor, and a manager. And in order to get to my ultimate goal, I have to climb each one of these levels one by one in order to achieve my ultimate goal. So while I may be at level 1 right now as an adjuster, while I'm in that position, I'm trying to understand what the adjusters at level 2 handle every day. Are there any things that I can do to develop myself proactively to be able to better prepare myself for that position? And ultimately, this is something that I leverage throughout the interview process, or, when I'm talking to the superiors, so that they understand what I'm doing, not only to make myself be the best performer in my job role every day, but I'm also taking an active role to seek ways to prepare myself for the future. And this helps them understand my level of commitment to developing myself. But it also serves as a mechanism to separate me from the rest of the competition. And that's something that you always want to make sure that you're doing every single day when you come into work as well. Because while you may have a number of goals that you want to achieve, remember that others probably share a lot of those same goals as well. And you always want to think through your business and think about it as if it were your own. You need to understand your business's mission, and you need to take steps to understand the strategy as it falls into that mission. You want to actively pursue opportunities to add value to your organization. And that can mean things like taking on a project to improve quality or productivity, or some process you can land on to cut expenses. A lot of companies love to cut expenses and find a cheaper way to still provide a high quality product. So if you as an individual can think through a way of how to achieve some of your business's goals, that's going to be another thing that's going to set you out apart from the rest of the people that you're going to be working with on a daily basis. And then when it comes to getting a mentor, don't be afraid to ask someone to take you on as their mentee. But remember, the foundation that you've laid will help make their decision easier. So if they already know you for some of the reasons that I've spoken about before, such as you're always on time for work and you ask great questions, you're always willing to help, well, these are some of the things that are going to make them much more likely to be willing to take you on as a mentee. And you also want to select someone at a level that you aspire to reach. And that doesn't mean that you go to the workplace and you necessarily send the CEO an email on day one that you start with the company, but you certainly want to think through your inevitable goal and some of those checkpoints that you have to go along as you pursue your inevitable goal, and then set up a relationship with someone that can help you understand how you can get to the next level in your career. And when it comes to these meetings, you want to schedule regular appointments, and you want to supply them with an itinerary of topics to discuss before each session. So when you have a mentor, while they are graciously going to help you develop yourself, you also want to take ownership for some of that as well. And you want to own setting up the appointments, determining when they have the availability to do so. And then you also want to supply them with an itinerary of topics so that they know what specifically you want to discuss ahead of time, so they can prepare for it and prepare any content that may benefit you in your understanding of those topics. But it also communicates that you are owning your development. And that's important for a mentor, because a lot of the people that you might want to mentor a relationship with, they have a lot of work, they have challenging jobs. And I know we're all wanting that, we're all in pursuit of that. But the last thing they want is someone who needs help, deserves help, and they want to get you that help. But the last thing they want is kind of more work piled on top of it, right? So us owning a piece of that and owning what we want to talk through, what we want more information on, and giving it to that person ahead of time so that they can prepare their talking points really goes a long way. And when you're going through your meetings, don't hesitate to ask them for ideas on how you can proactively prepare for forthcoming opportunities. It's all about preparation. And again, that's a huge component that's going to separate you from some of the other candidates that you might be up against. And that's what your mentor is ultimately going to be preparing you for. You're always in pursuit of ways to distinguish yourself from those who may be in pursuit of the same opportunity. And I know we talked a little bit about that. So now I'm going to talk through some of my individual experiences on how I've utilized some of my professional mentors. And forgive me if any of them are repeats of what we just went through. A lot of them may be, but I just wanted to give you specific examples. So some of the things that I've always been in pursuit of is a proactive understanding of what my brand is at a higher level. And my thought process is that those above me are always going to be the ones that are making the decision in terms of, jobs I may be in pursuit of, or different opportunities, whatever the case may be. but their perception of my brand is going to be critical to my achievement of those goals. So rather than wait for the opportunity to have my brand be a factor in my ability to achieve some of the things I'm after, I always look to take a proactive approach and understand what my management team above me thinks about me proactively, so that when I'm going in pursuit of a position, I can know of certain obstacles I may need to overcome, or even better, I may have time before the opportunity is available and be able to make improvements upon my brand if need be, or whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, you always want to have an understanding of what your teammates and your superiors view your brand as, because it often can be a factor in the workplace. You also, I've also sought to understand the leadership style of those I may be interviewing with. So some of your mentors may interact with other people that you might have to interview with, or whatever the case may be. They may interact with them often, and they can provide you additional insight into specific things you need to understand and consider when you're going to be in communication with those people. So they help you understand some of the people that you may not come in contact with every single day. And that can benefit you in the long run, because you never know when you will come in contact with them. And also a better understanding of those people's priorities as well. If I want to achieve a certain level, well, I need to understand how the people at that level think, what their priorities are, how they rank, and how they approach every single day to be successful, and what they have to speak to the people above them. The mentors that I've had have also helped me better understand topics I'm unfamiliar with. Geico is a very large company, and without telling you every single position I've ever held, all of my roles have only been in claims. So the only thing I know, not the only thing I know, but the main thing I know is how to spend the company's money. In claims, we have the checkbook. When someone's in an accident, I take care of that accident and resolve any exposures that may arise as a result of that accident. Well, there's so much more to the company that is Geico, and how we operate as an organization, and what our strategy is and our mission is. And I don't have exposure to those things on a daily basis. So my mentors have helped me develop an understanding of how our company operates as a whole, because that's the thought process I try to think through on a daily basis, because I don't want to have tunnel vision and only be concerned with the checkbook. I also want to consider how the company makes money, other ways it spends its money, the service that we strive to provide at all different facets of the company. These are all areas that I want to make sure I'm a professional in, because it speaks to my commitment to not only the success of my direct position, but also the overall success of the company. So that's something a mentor can help you with. And suggestions I can take to distinguish myself from from additional applicants that I may be going up against. I've also had mentors give me my recommendation for grad school, which I needed to get. I started grad school when I was already an employee at Geico, and I needed a reference. And luckily, my boss was able and willing to give me that recommendation. And also a source for information that I may not be regularly privileged to. And that can be things like new corporate strategies, forthcoming changes, and different departmental opportunities that may come down the pike. And that doesn't mean, I'm getting information I shouldn't get, but there is information that I wouldn't have as readily available to me that my mentor has helped me interact with. So right now, I would say I have 3 individuals that I would consider my mentor. And they all bring different application to my personal and professional development. So both networking and mentorship, as well as the utilization of the LinkedIn social media platform, are instrumental in, will be instrumental in your guys' career and a lot of the accomplishments that you're going to be seeking here in the immediate future. And with that ends my last talking point. I'm happy to open it up to the group if you guys have any questions or want any clarifications on any of the topics that I talked through.
If you'd like to ask your question verbally, please let us know in the comments and I can unmute you.
And I'm old school here, so I'm trying to, Q&A, trying to find the question.
So I told them they could put them in the chat. We've had some comments. Some people have commented, like they say, we should dress, behave, and prepare knowledge, skills, and abilities for the next job opportunity that we are hoping to move to, and not just the one we already have. We have a question. How do you recommend you network when you feel awkward in those types of situations?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. And to be clear, I'm naturally an introvert. And that's not to say that I can't, navigate the waters of conversations like the one that I'm in, but I naturally don't feel compelled to be the first person to speak. So when you're in pursuit of a networking opportunity, often you have to take that head on. So it more so comes from experience. The first time you'll be nervous, but you're really just facilitating a conversation. Hi, what's your name? What do you do? Tell me a little bit about that industry. Let me tell you a little bit about what I do or what I'm in pursuit of. And a lot of it is the same common questions that you might ask different people, but it's really about facilitating a conversation within a personalized conversation within those separate questions or topics that you might be going through. So I guess in summary, it's something that you develop. If you don't have, some people naturally have it. I don't naturally have it. And if you're like me and you don't naturally have it, it's going to be about practice. It's going to be about application. And so you got to just dive in the water, I'd say. If you don't have a mentor already, how do you recommend finding a mentor versus just a regular work connection? So I guess what I would say is it's about laying the foundation that I referenced in some of my talking points, but just making sure that you already come off as someone who is committed to both your individual success as well as the success of the organization. And then find yourself in different, whether it be sessions or opportunities to learn from others. So if you have a mentor and you get an email that they're doing a presentation at work about some topic and you're able to attend that presentation, or maybe they do some type of other training with you, maybe you set up a subsequent meeting to talk through what you learned in that session or what you learned in that training. Maybe you have some additional questions or you want some additional clarification. And then, what I do sometimes is, this is a topic that I tell them at the end of the conversation, this is a topic that I'm really committed to learning more about. And I want to find a way to make a difference in the organization. So what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, is take a step back, digest the information that you gave me today and what I learned in the presentation. And I really want to think through a way or a process that I can come up with and help the team facilitate to be able to improve in this area or to be able to add value to this initiative. And if you don't mind, I'd like to set a meeting up with you, maybe 3 months from now, 30-minute meeting, just to go through some of my additional ideas and what your perception may be. So maybe it doesn't immediately shift into, hey, you're my mentor, but you're really looking for regular meetings with different people that eventually you can turn into a mentor relationship. That's right. Yeah, how to come across as confident but not arrogant. Yeah, that's something that you want to make sure that you balance, and it's definitely can be a thin line at times. I think, you want to definitely know what you bring to the table and what your skill set offers, but you also want to be humble enough to know that there's more to learn. You want to compliment the person that you're speaking to. And if you know a little bit about what they've accomplished, or maybe you can proactively understand what they've accomplished, but I guess you don't want to make it all about yourself. You also want to sprinkle in some knowledge about the person you're talking to, who they are as a person, what they've achieved in the organization. Maybe they've been promoted a number of times, and that track is something that's very attractive to you and something that you want to earn the right to pursue. But that doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge what you've already been able to accomplish. So I guess what I would say is it's a balance. You don't want to talk all about yourself, but you also don't want to shy away from making it clear that you've done some pretty awesome things as well. So that's what I would say on that. I think that's the last question I see. I'll give it a little bit more here. Okay. Looks like that's the last question. I want to thank you guys for your time. My email, if you guys can see my name there, is ldarrell@geico.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. My name is spelled exactly how you see it there. I welcome all of you to connect with me on LinkedIn or email me if you have any additional questions. And I'd like to thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you guys today.
Real quick, we had one participant raise their hand, so I am going to unmute them.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Sorry.
James, I see your hand raised. That's okay. I don't know if you would have been able to see it. All right, James, you should be able to speak once you unmute yourself.
Hello. Hello.
You have feedback on your line. Do you have your computer and your phone next to each other?
Yeah, I just muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
Yeah, no, I was like, when you were referring to, I think, the previous question, I just couldn't hear very well. I think somebody was asking about like confident-wise, but I just couldn't hear you very well at the last ending. If you could just rephrase that like a little bit real quick.
No problem. So I think the question was framed around how do you come off as confident but not confident? And I guess it's a little bit more of an art than science, but you want to find a way to acknowledge your accomplishments as well as acknowledging your opportunity and the accomplishments of others. So you want to balance the humility and the fact that you are in pursuit of bettering yourself and you feel as though this person who's also accomplished great things can help you achieve that. But you don't want to shy away from achievements that you may have already been able to successfully attain. But you really just want to make sure you're balancing the two, is what I would say. Hopefully you heard me that time. Let me know if you didn't.
Yeah, he said thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Anyone else have any questions for Leon?
Leon, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this workshop today. Excellent information. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Matina.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, if there's no further questions, then we will go ahead and release Leon of his time. We're very appreciative of everything that you've been able to provide to us today. Some great gold nuggets that I think hopefully everyone took notes. These are being recorded. They will be available on Polk Vision's YouTube channel. And also there will be links on social media in the next week or so. Okay, we do have one more hand raised. Kendi. Okay, go ahead, Kendi. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes. I could not hear you very well. Is there any way you can like summarize like what you had talk about, like just like in a brief statement?
Yeah. So I guess I talked about the first thing I talked about is what networking is, which is establishing and nurturing long-term connections with the specific intent of benefiting one another.
Okay.
Through different ways, different places where that plays a role. Then we spoke about LinkedIn, some of the rules on there. The first rule is make sure you're not treating it like a Facebook or Instagram or some other social media platform you may be more familiar with. Make sure you update your profile often. Make sure you leverage your real life connections, people that you may already know. Have a professional photograph and nurture your relationships on LinkedIn as well. And then I talked through my perspective about, getting a mentor in the workplace, how to network in the workplace. Talked about laying a foundation, making sure that you have a great perception, a great brand before you already meet the person who you want to have a mentor relationship with. And making sure you're not afraid to ask people to be your mentor, ensuring that you schedule the meetings and provide the mentor with an itinerary of things you want to talk through. And don't hesitate to ask questions as well as seek ways to bring value to your organization that you are a member of. I guess how I would summarize what I talked about.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, and thank you again, Leon. I think this was great. We had some great questions, and it's important that you have that confidence and you know how to network and you know how to speak to people. And so I think they'll be looking forward to getting some of your notes later. And again, thank you everyone for attending. And that's all we have.
Bye guys, good luck.
Thank you.